I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm okay as far as I know.
Last you
So
checked?
go ahead. Are we recording?
We are recording.
All right. Okay. How are you doing with the designing a contest that Michael R. can't win with the Aardvark short sword and flames?
I have notions. I gotta run it past Margaret because I was gonna let her be the other judge since she and I both already got a cover for free. We're out. We can't be in the running.
Okay, that's a good plan.
And then I was thinking of saying, well, if you already bought a cover, you should be out. But then I'm like, well, those people paid money, and maybe somebody wants to. If I had bought one, I probably would have said, okay, I want to be out. I don't want to take a chance of stealing it from somebody that wants it more.
Right. Speaking of which, Rich L. from Peoria, I know you're going to be listening to this, Rich, and I got your cover done, number 30, subtitled Rich's number 153, and I got Rolly to email that. I think I got him to email it to you so that you could have it on a moment of service. But it also went out in the mail. So, Rich, anytime that you feel like you want to pay for it, you send me a check. I'm really not worried, or use the PayPal. I'm not really not worried about whether or not I'm going to get paid by Rich L.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. So moving on from there, the photo of me that Jeff Seiler took. This is our Jeff Seiler never to be forgotten segment, which we start on the Please Hold for Dave Sim with. And the longer I went without explaining the photo, more stuff got mixed in with it. So this is another one where I wrote out what it is that I had to say, and I imagine everybody's looking at that photo on the screen right now, right?
Yes.
Yes, or they will be anyway. Okay. I don't really hear from anyone. It's very much along the lines of my other aphorism, if you leave your penis alone, your penis will leave you alone. One of the pluses of having that as standard operating procedure in your life is that when I do hear from someone, it's a red flag. It's either a test, a punishment, or a reward. Alexa leaving a phone message that she lives in Toronto and she would like to interview me for her podcast. And we're going back to like 2010 for this. As soon as I heard that, I went, well, I'm guessing test. Is Dave Sim the unrepentant horn dog that he was? Well, I hadn't slept with anyone for 12 years at that point, so I decided to emphasize that fact. And called her and said, sure, as a matter of fact, why don't I come down there and you can interview me at my hotel? You'll get a podcast and I'll get a service TV segment. Metaphysics being what it is, like attracts like, and I'm not sure that I could explain that any more thoroughly, but as soon as I did that, saying that to Alexa, that then kicks it up to a higher, is Dave Sim still the unrepentant horn dog that we've known for years and years and years. So yes, metaphysics being what it is, like attracts like. Next, I hear from Jeff Seiler. He was coming to Canada to get all his stuff from the crazy Canadian lady's house. Would it be okay if he visited? Fine, Jeff. You can give me a lift to Toronto because he was talking about being here at the same time that I was going to Toronto to do this podcast/service TV segment. So that's sort of a sign that we're all pretty much on the same page. Anyway, when he was here, I gave him the local nickel tour, including driving past the downstairs of 103 Queen Street South, the former location of Now and Then Books. That's where I met Denny when I was working downstairs at 103 Queen Street South. As we're driving past, and I'm just going to point and say, right when we're past this building, look downstairs, the door downstairs that leads into what was the downstairs of Now and Then Books. But as we're going past, the door was open, and I had never seen that before. It has to have been probably 15 years since the last time that there had been a business down there. So it's like, okay, this is a little different. The downstairs door is open. I have no idea why the downstairs door is open, except in a metaphysics sense. So it turned out someone had bought the place and was renovating it, and found that out because we parked around back where I knew there were parking spaces for 103 Queen South. And I walked into the downstairs of 103 Queen Street South for the first time since the spring of 1977. And, of course, Jeff was thrilled. And that's when Jeff snapped this picture of me. This is me standing about, I would guess, 8 feet in front of the spot where Denny was standing when she said, "Hi, are you Harry?" The metaphysical structure of it, in retrospect, is Jeff at the end of the worst relationship in his entire life, and me on my way to Toronto to be interviewed by Alexis. The Denny door is closing for him and opening for me, with a question mark. Well, no question mark as far as I'm concerned. Alexis is very pretty, of course, but we just do the interview and it's goodbye. I don't hit on her. I don't come close to hitting on her. She's in her 20s. I'm in my 50s. Sometimes you have to do these things, though. As near as I can figure out, the beings who have direct jurisdiction over us are omnipresent, but not omniscient. I've actually got a copy of a painting, the Ascension of the Virgin Mary, which illustrates that concept very well, which we can get into another time, and I'll see if I can dig it up and scan it and send it to you. But it illustrates the fact that the lower level angels, guardian angels, or whatever they are of a very different form from the upper guardian angels. The higher up you go, the less close you are to physical incarnation. So this is how the higher angels stay in touch with us through the lower guardian angels. All they can base their decision-making on is observable action, because they can't read your mind, unlike God and unlike the upper guardian angels, if they're inclined to do that, which most of the time they're not. It's like, just keep an eye on them, let us know what they're doing, and if anybody's doing anything interesting, let us know. Apart from that, just keep track of what they're up to. So it does come down to observable action. Until I didn't hit on Alexis, they had no idea what I was going to do, which is why I recommend reading scripture aloud, and on your knees praying out loud. It's observable faith, observable good decision making and choices. If you just do everything in your head, it's like, well, I don't actually pray, but I'm always talking to God in my head. That's not observable. So I highly recommend if there's an invisible guardian angel in front of me and behind me, as it says in the Quran, or the one angel on the one shoulder and the other angel on the other shoulder, do something that they can actually see, do something that they can actually hear, and you'll make their job a whole lot easier, and they'll make your life a whole lot easier. So anyway, getting back to the story, I pressed Jeff into service as cameraman, and we ended up shooting a framing sequence of Alexa walking to the hotel and through the hotel lobby, and then that just cut to the two of us in one of the public areas with her interviewing me and me answering questions. And there's this scene where I was the cameraman, and I got Jeff to run up to Alexa and go, "Oh my God, you're Alexa." And she goes like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Can you sign my BlackBerry?" He had a BlackBerry at the time. And she goes, "How could I do that?" And he goes, "Just type your name into it." So gingerly, she takes his BlackBerry between two fingers and then types into it and gingerly, two-fingered, hands it back to him. And then she walks toward the camera, sort of shaking her head, shuddering. And behind her, Jeff is staring at her, quote, signature, unquote. And he's like freaking out with joy. That's all I told him. Just, you're really, really thrilled that you got Alexa's signature on your BlackBerry. So we did it in one take, and Jeff was great. He was actually jumping up and down in the background. Knowing how bad his knees were by then, that was really performance above and beyond the call of duty. So there's the story behind that photo that Jeff Seiler took of me. And I've got another Jeff Seiler story, but it's going to be your turn next time. You've got another Jeff Seiler story for next time, right?
Yeah, I probably do.
Yeah.
But your story, there's a second part to it. Is that what you're going to tell the next time it's your turn?
What do you consider the second part to it?
So when you and Jeff were in the basement of Now and Then Books, you walked in and saw the wallpaper and exclaimed, "I got it right!"
I forgot that part. Yes, that was in the Cerebus archive. I was going to look that up in the Cerebus archive comic book, where I actually drew the scene of Denny coming in and saying, "Hi, are you Harry?" And I'm pretty sure that I at least put in the world's ugliest wallpaper, because as you can see from the photo, it's definitely over in the Oscar Wilde category. One of us has to go. Then now we've got also a surprise question that came in late and came in from Birdsong. So I've got the paragraph marked off here. On a more serious note, I wonder if you ever discussed Steve Ditko's withdrawal from all things comics fandom with him when the two of you were corresponding. And no, I didn't. I'll get to that. He says, "I'm just curious. Was he a very self-disciplined man who was devoted to his work and avoided as many distractions as he could?" Well, he definitely was that. But I don't think that factored. I can only tell you what I know and what I've surmised from what I know. Did he find the fans to be creeping morons? that he couldn't stand to be around. By all accounts, he was a polite man and would engage fans pleasantly if they happened to find him. I have to wonder if it was the numbskulls that drove him, quote, underground, unquote. What we know about the situation is that Steve Ditko went to one of the first comic book conventions. And I believe it was 1964. If it wasn't 64, it wouldn't be much later than 65, because comic book conventions definitely started in New York City. And Steve Ditko, being an Aristotelian, I think and this is where I'm surmising, knowing that Steve Ditko was an Aristotelian and indirectly an objectivist, but it was more like Ayn Rand and Steve Ditko were from the same Aristotle tree, just kind of different approaches to it. And my guess is that he found out about this comic book convention and went, well, I'm, a fan of comic books. I've been a fan of comic books for years. I work in the comic book field. I will go to this public event, and essentially, this sounds interesting to me. I've never been to an event focused on comic books. This sounds good. I think that my guess is that ran afoul of his Aristotelian objectivist, objective reality tripwires, probably in two directions. One of which was autographs. You're Steve Ditko, can you sign this for me? And it's, a copy of Spider-Man. I mean, you have to remember, 1964, this is like year 2 of Spider-Man, and everybody's brains were melting who were, at that magic age for comic books getting in your blood. Can you sign this for me? And it's like, yeah, I can. I mean, I'm physically capable of it. Why would I do that? Which this is usually where I go. This would be so much easier to explain if people had read The Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged. I forget which one. Do you know which one is the one with the architect or Howard Roark in it?
I want to say it's Atlas Shrugged, but I'm probably wrong.
I know, it's like a 50-50 thing, and I'm going, I can picture both of those titles applying to Howard Roark. Anyway, it's one of those people who are objectivists or Aristotelians or adherents to the idea of objective reality can be determined, should be determined, and you should live your life according to objective reality. Something like an autograph is, why would I do that? For Steve Ditko, it's he drew comic books for a living, and the situation when you do the thing for a living is you arrive at an agreement with whoever is paying you to do that thing, and then you do it in such a way that it's as good a piece of work as you could possibly do. That's the kind of architect that Howard Roark was. The fact that that's all that you're concerned about is doing the best possible job that you can for the client that you're doing it for creates unbelievable problems in a society when it's losing its way away from objective reality and falling into a giant cesspool of subjective reality, feeling, because you're at the comic book convention. You're here because this is a place where comic book people are going because it's called a comic book convention, and someone is now asking you to do something where there's no objective reason for you to do that. Whereas on their side, it's like, no, you're here. You drew this comic book, and I have a pen. Can you sign it? And it's like, and can you sign it to me? Can you sign it to Steve? And it's like, well, I didn't do the comic book for you. I did it for Marvel Comics. I got paid to do it. And it's like, yeah, I know that, but it would just be like really, really cool if you would write your name on this and then personalize it to me. So right away, for someone who is an Aristotelian, an objectivist, a believer in objective reality, as usually happens, you go somewhere just because this seems like an interesting thing to do, and let's see what this is all about as a participant. Suddenly you're in an argument with somebody about something that you really, as far as you're concerned, shouldn't be having to argue with somebody about. I didn't do that comic book for you. Your arrangement, your connection to this comic book is that you paid 10 cents for it, or you paid 12 cents for it. Marvel Comics got some of that money. I got some of that money. But your relationship isn't with me. The other one, apart from the signing, would have been the opinionating. You're the guy who draws Spider-Man. Here's what I have to tell you. Like the Green Goblin really sucks, or something like that. And it's like, again, why are we having this conversation? You paid for the comic book. You got to read it. It's all over and done. If you have any complaint about it, or you want something changed on the comic book, write to the people who publish the comic book. The other thing, what's Stan Lee really like? It's like, why are we having this conversation? Yes, I work with Stan Lee. He writes Spider-Man, and I draw it. Although that's over in weird territory as well, because that's completely changed from the objective reality way of doing a comic book, where you're the writer, you type out a script, you give it to me, I take your script and I draw it. And I draw it in such a way that it is the best possible work that I can do drawing your script. It's like, now you're changing it so that I'm half writing and half drawing the thing and then giving it to you, and then you're rewriting it. And it's like, these are all objectivist, Aristotelian, objective reality tripwires, where you're really muddying up the reality of the situation. I'm not muddying it up. I'm doing what I said that I was going to do, but you're changing fundamental parts of it. But at the same time, he's going, I'm sure this is all flashing through Steve Ditko's head, but he's going, what business is it of yours? You aren't me. You aren't Stan Lee. Why would I tell you what I think of Stan Lee? And it's like, well, because that would be really cool, because you're Steve Ditko, and I love your Spider-Man, and I love Stan Lee's Spider-Man, and I want to know what Stan Lee is really like. It's like, but so the reason that I came to these conclusions was because he only went to the one convention, and I would assume from an objective reality standpoint, he just went, this is unworkable. I mean, you know, there's no viable option of a way to do this. I mean, I would say, well, just don't tell them you're Steve Ditko. Just, you know, pay to get into the place, and then just walk around looking at comic books. Nobody knows what you look like, so you can be completely incognito. But that's another objective reality tripwire. It's like, I am Steve Ditko. Why would I pretend not to be Steve Ditko, or work to not have someone know that I'm Steve Ditko? You're making it sound as if there's something wrong with being Steve Ditko. And it's like, from an objective reality standpoint, that's untenable. If I'm going in there and everybody's getting a name badge and they're writing their names on their name badges, oh, okay, this is my name badge. My name's Steve Ditko. And it's like, Steve Ditko? Well, you can't control that reaction. So that was where it started, I'm pretty sure. I don't think Steve Ditko had any background in science fiction conventions, which were the only precursors for comic book conventions at the time, and just experienced this, no, this is another one of those, why does the world react this way to someone who makes his decisions based on his determination of what objective reality is? Aristotelians don't usually revisit decisions like that. It's like, no, I went there. This was my experience. The experience seems to be baked in as an element of this. So this is just another one of those crazy environments that really don't suit anybody who makes their decisions based on objective reality. He did try to explain his reaction to fandom and to fans, because he heard from a lot of them, because people would find out that, well, he's Steve Ditko, he's just in the Manhattan phone book. He's not going to not be in the Manhattan phone book because people might contact him because he's Steve Ditko. Again, why would I pretend not to be Steve Ditko or do anything exceptional with my phone listing? You know, don't put in my address, don't put in my phone number. So he heard from a lot of people, and just it was always a tripwire of, this is my work. I do my work according to the agreement that I reach with whomever it is who is employing me at the time. That's between me and him as the representative of the company. And we keep working until he's tripped over so many objective reality tripwires that I no longer find this a tenable way to work, which ultimately happened with Marvel Comics. But what has that to do with you as the reader? Like, to him, it would be the same as going to see a violin concerto as an aficionado of the violin, and then writing a letter to the violinist telling him what he didn't like about his virtuoso performance. First of all, how would you know? Have you ever played the violin? Well, no. Well, then why would you think that you could, have anything valid or interesting to say to the violinist? And it's like, it's just, he would, Steve Ditko would have considered that clinically insane behavior for somebody going to a concert. So he considered it the same way with people who didn't write and draw comics, but wanted to tell him what it is that he should do. And that was exacerbated when he left Marvel, when he left Spider-Man and Doctor Strange at the absolute peak of popularity and the peak of the baby boomer years. And, you know, went to Charlton Comics. It's like, you can't do that. You're Steve Ditko. You do Spider-Man. You know, as Howard Chaykin said, if Steve Ditko did it, it's Spider-Man. If anybody else did it, it's not Spider-Man. It's just a corporate trademark that somebody got employed to dick around on with that's actually Steve Ditko. And for him, it was, well, no, it was the most sensible thing that I could do. It was going from a situation where I used to get scripts from Stan Lee, you know, 5-page monster stories or terror stories or whatever. I think they designed Amazing Adult Fantasy for Steve Ditko, because these are Steve Ditko stories, and nobody does stories like these like Steve Ditko. So let's have a Steve Ditko title. And it worked exactly the way Steve Ditko wanted it to work. Stan Lee typed out a script, and just, if it was a Steve Ditko story, put it in the Steve Ditko basket. Steve Ditko picked it up, took it all, drew it as only Steve Ditko could, and brought it back in. We're all done. And then having this whole Marvel style thrust upon him, when it did become untenable and he left, then it was, okay, this is a far more comfortable working relationship that I've got at Charlton. Joe Gill writes really good short stories, like Stan Lee writes really good short twist ending stories. And I just go in and pick up the script and draw the story, and by the time I bring it in, they've got 4 more scripts for me. This is perfect. This is a lot better than doing Spider-Man. It's like trying to explain that to comic book fans in the 1960s. You left Spider-Man and went to do Charlton twist ending stories. If you want to read Steve Ditko talking about fans, just look at Robin Snyder's inventory of Steve Ditko's text pieces, publications, Steve Ditko's 30-page, 36-page, whatever. Sometimes it's a mix of comics and essays, and Steve Ditko will say exactly what he thinks of fandom per se, which really had nothing to do with numbskulls per se. It had to do with people expressing opinions about things that they have no expertise about to someone who makes a living at it. That's just, that's, as the British say, not on. And it was, Steve would try and explain what it is that he is reacting to. But it comes across as insulting, because what he's seeing is emotionalism. We're crying crocodile tears at you because we want you to do this, and instead of this thing we want you to do, you're doing something else. And it's like, yeah, this has nothing to do with you. This is what I do for a living. You don't go into a restaurant and go back and tell the chef what he did wrong with your food. You know, we can accommodate special orders to a degree, but I'm the guy cooking the stuff, and this is what it's like. You don't like this cooking, go somewhere else. So, is there anything that you think that I'm missing there in answering Mr. Birdsong's question?
No. I'm experiencing a really weird metaphysical moment, though. So
How, sir?
I got home from work, and there was a box sitting in my living room, and it's from Tennessee, from David Birdsong. He had told me he had a bunch of extra issues of service, and he didn't know what to do with them. I'm like, just send them to me, and I'll take care of it. So I expected a box, but it was a large box. And I opened it up going, okay, just to see what's in it. And it's a bunch of copies of Spawn number 10 and like 5-6 issues of service that I either have or I either need them or I don't need them, but I gotta look. But then there's a copy of, going back to the beginning of this call, Oktoberfest Comics number 1, which has got an ad for Now and Then Books at 103 Queen Street, South Kitchener, Ontario on the back, because that's who printed it. And I'm not making this up, Dave, there's a copy of issue 4 of Imagine, which has Cosmics in it by you, and a story by Steve Ditko.
I think that's the only time Steve Ditko and I ever appeared somewhere together in print.
That's kind of what I thought. He did The
There
Summoning.
you go. It's definitely got a comic art metaphysics vibe to it, I would say.
And that's, it's one of these, the box came, I'm like, I should do a video of me opening it and put it on Amok because it'll be funny. And then I'm like, now I'm going to open it now just to see what's in here. And I'm like, there's a bunch of stuff in here that I want. Like, it was all going to go into the Amok prize closet, but most of it's going to go in the Amok vault, and the rest of it's going to go in the prize closet.
Well done, Mr. Birdsong. Well done.
As he's known in the Amok editorial offices, damn it, Birdsong, because he's got a tendency to post stuff and not let me know that he's posting stuff. So then I go to post stuff, and there's already a post, and
right.
He doesn't put titles. He doesn't put labels, because everything gets labeled so that if you like this particular post, you can click the label and get all the posts. Like the Monday Report posts all get labeled Monday. So if you click it, here's all the Monday reports.
Right.
To make it internet friendly to people. And invariably he does the post, and I go and recreate the post and, leave what he put, but bookend it by me saying, damn it, Birdsong. He thinks it's funny. I know he does. Because he sends me emails going, well, if you don't have an aneurysm.
I think it's funny, too. It's Matt Dow, Perry White to David Birdsong's Jimmy Olsen.
Well, his nickname in the early days of my reign on Amok was Superman's Frenemy. Because I just thought it was, Sean Robinson was your pal and mine, Sean Michael Robinson. Birdsong became Superman's Frenemy, and I couldn't come up with one for Hobbs when Hobbs started posting, and then I just dropped all of that. And occasionally I remember it, and I go, oh yeah, and I typed that in. But yeah, that was the nicknames for about a year.
I would think that DC would want to jump on that as a flashback to the 1960s. Superman's Frenemy and whoever that would be. It could be really anyone from Lex Luthor to Jimmy Olsen, depending on how you write the psychology of it. Okay, question all the way from Russia. It's not nearly as impressive